بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, today we're going to continue our book Al-Arba'e n-Nawawi, the 40 Hadith by Imam n-Nawawi. So we stopped on Al-Hadith As-Sadis, which is the sixth Hadith, the sixth Hadith. And this hadith is reported or narrated by An Abi Abdullah. We know what An means. It means from. It's reported from who? The father of Abdullah. Who is he? His name is Nu'man ibn Bashir. His name is Nu'man ibn Bashir. This is his name, right? He's also known as the father of Abdullah, but his name is Nu'man, son of Bashir. Radiallahu anhuma, may Allah be pleased with both of them. Now, he says radiallahu anhuma, may Allah be pleased with both of them, because both Nu'man and his father Bashir ibn Amr were companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they both saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as Muslims. So they are the Sahabas, they're amongst the Sahabas of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we say radiallahu anhuma to both of them. May Allah be pleased with both of them. Qala, Nu'man says, Sami'tu Rasulallah, Sami'tu, I heard, Rasulallahi, the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, yaqul, saying. Right, I heard the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, saying. And we've seen the statement two times before, so we should know what Sami'tu Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, yaqul means. Right? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, Innal halala bayyin. He says, certainly, what is lawful is clear. What is lawful is clear. What does this mean? It means that whatever that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made lawful for us is clear, is known, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this clear in the Quran, and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made it clear through His teachings. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُحِلَّتْ لَكُمْ بَهِيمَةُ الْأَنْعَامِ. Lawful for you are the beasts of cattle, right? The camel, the cows, the sheep, and so on, right? This is stuff that is lawful for us, halal for us. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has permitted trading, right? These are things that are halal for us. And this is very known and clear, right? And then he says, وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّن. And what is unlawful, right? What is haram is also clear, right? Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made unlawful, this is also clear and known, right? We all know this. This is stuff that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made clear in the Quran, stuff that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam has made clear through his teachings. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ. And do not kill anyone which Allah has forbidden. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. And don't come near the unlawful relationships or intercourse, right? وَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah has permitted trading and He has forbidden riba, right? Interest. These are things that are clear. It's very known. And then he says, وَبَيْنَهُمَا. The Prophet says, وَبَيْنَهُمَا. But in between them, in between the halal and the haram, in between the halal and haram are mushtabihat, are ambiguous or doubtful matters. What does this mean? So there may be something that is unclear if it's halal or it's haram, right? There are some matters, and different narration, وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ, that there are some matters that are ambiguous and doubtful in nature. Why is it ambiguous and doubtful? Perhaps there's some evidence that points to something being halal, but there's also evidence that points it to being haram, right? So this is a doubtful matter. And the Prophet ﷺ continues, he says, لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس. He says the majority of people do not know what these are, right? The majority of people don't know what these things are, whether they're halal or sorry, if what the doubtful matters are, what the doubtful matters are. This is evidence that there is a few amongst the people who do know them. There's few people who do know them, but the majority of people don't. Can anyone guess who may know the rulings between these doubtful matters? Does anyone know? No one? The people who know these doubtful matters or are the scholars, right? And those who are grounded or well grounded in knowledge, right? They know whether these ambiguous matters are halal or haram. They've studied this deen, right? And they've found these evidences and know how to interpret them, and they know what these doubtful matters are. But for laymen, for people that don't, right? For people that have not studied, the majority of stuff, aside from halal haram, they know it as doubtful. So what do we do with these doubtful matters? The Prophet ﷺ tells us, he says, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ فَمَنِ اتَّقَى, whoever is cautious, right? Whoever is cautious or whoever refrains, right? When someone says ittaqullah, right? Usually people say fear Allah, but what does it mean? It doesn't mean fear Allah. It means be cautious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like be aware and slowly move around it, right? Whoever is cautious of ash-shubuhat, of the doubtful matters, whoever is cautious of them, meaning he doesn't want to go in between it, right? He doesn't want to get there. He puts a shield between himself and this doubtful matter. Whoever is cautious of it, فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. He has protected himself. He has protected himself, or he has protected his religion and his honor. Istabara, he has protected lidinihi, for his religion, wa irdi, and his honor. What does this mean? If you stay away from doubtful matters, if we naturally just always stay away from doubtful matters, we know for sure we are not going to fall into haram. Why? Because we know what is halal and we do it. And we know what's haram is haram and we stay away from it. But what's doubtful, it may be halal, it may be haram. If we stay away from it, we know for sure we're safe, right? So we protected two things. We protected our religion from falling into sin and our honor, right? Our honor, meaning so that we are not falling to sin and our honor is not, or our reputation is not damaged, as the Prophet ﷺ says. And then he says, وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ, whoever, وَمَنْ وَقَعَ, whoever falls فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ, into doubtful matters, وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ, he will fall into haram. He will fall into haram. Or he falls into haram, right? He falls into haram. He falls into haram. How can this be, right? How can this be? Because if someone is careless about doubtful matters, meaning, hey, it's not haram, it may be halal, I'm gonna just do it, right? I'm gonna do it anyway, right? He becomes careless about these doubtful matters and these ambiguous matters. One day he will find himself in haram by doing this because he is careless, right? Because he is careless. Right? He doesn't follow up, or he doesn't stay away from it, or he doesn't ask the people of knowledge, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, to ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. Instead, he just falls into it and he just does these doubtful matters. One day he will find himself falling into haram. And the Prophet ﷺ gives an example. He says, كَالرَّاعِ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى. He says, like the shepherd. كَالرَّاعِ, like the shepherd. Like the shepherd. A shepherd is one who tends to sheep, right? He has a bunch of sheep or goats, and he's grazing them around the land, right? He walks them around the land. Karra'i, like the shepherd, yar'a, he grazes his sheep, meaning he walks his sheep around, right? Hawl al-hima, around the sanctuary, around a sanctuary. And a sanctuary is like a protected land, a forbidden piece of land. For example, let's see if I can draw here. Let's say this piece of land here is forbidden, right? Meaning if someone goes in this land it is considered trespassing, right? And then we have our shepherd here. He is walking with his animals or with his sheep and stuff, right? He's walking here, and he slowly gets closer, right? He slowly gets closer around here. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Is karra'i yar'a hawla al-hima," like the shepherd who grazes his sheep around a sanctuary, yushiku an yarta'a fi, right? He says that soon he will soon graze into, or he will soon graze into that sanctuary, meaning he will soon fall into it. He will soon yarta'a fi, graze into that sanctuary. How would this happen? Because sheep, right? I mean, they're just walking around, they're following a person. Even if the shepherd is walking around here and doesn't even fall into it and he walks around, there's doubt that the sheep may start walking into this land, right? And now he has entered the sanctuary. He has trespassed, right? This is the example that Allah subhanahu or that Muhammad sallallahu gives, right? Whoever falls into doubtful matters, right? He will fall into this haram. He's circling these doubtful matters. One day he will find himself falling into the haram because he's so close to it, right? And the Prophet ﷺ continues, he says, ألا وإن لكل ملك هما لكل ملك هما. The Prophet ﷺ says, just my thing. He says, truly, Allah, or listen up, right? Listen up. Truly, this is a call for attention, or to whatever's coming next is very important. وَإِنَّ لِكُلِّ مَلِكٍ هِمَا. That for every single king, right? Verily, every single king is a sanctuary. Meaning every single king has something like a sanctuary. He has a forbidden area, something that is forbidden, right? Every king has this for himself. Ala wa inna himallahi maharimu. And verily the sanctuary of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is maharimu, what he has forbidden, right? What he has forbidden. This is something that we cannot cross, right? This is a sanctuary. We cannot cross this. We cannot fall into what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden. And then again, the Prophet ﷺ says, Allah, listen up, truly, wa inna fil jasadi, inside of the body, verily, inside of the body is mudgha, is mudgha. Who can tell me what mudgha is? This is on your test. Who can tell me what mudgha is from last week's class? What is mudgha? Anyone?
Is it
مضغة,
Yeah, what's mudgha?
piece of flesh.
Yes, it's a piece of flesh, right? A lump of flesh. The Prophet ﷺ said, Ala wa inna fil jasadi mudgha. There is a piece of flesh in everyone's body, inside the body. إِذَا صَلَحَتْ, when it becomes righteous, right? Or when it becomes upright. When it becomes righteous, upright, right? It becomes good. When this piece of flesh becomes righteous and good, صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ. The whole body becomes righteous. The whole body becomes righteous. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ, but when it becomes corrupt, when this piece of flesh becomes corrupt, فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ. The whole body becomes corrupt. This makes sense? This piece of flesh inside the body, once it becomes righteous, the whole body becomes righteous and upright. But once it becomes corrupted, the whole body becomes corrupted. What is this piece of flesh? Ala wa hiya al-qalbu. Truly, listen up, it is the heart. It is the heart. Rawahu al-Bukhari wa Muslim. This is found in both Bukhari and Muslim. Right? This heart, this ending is very powerful. The heart is a piece of flesh in everyone's body, right? And it's truly what believes and what becomes righteous, or what disbelieves and becomes of the wrongdoers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. He says, verily, it's not the eyes that grow blind, right? When you're trying to show people the verses and the miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the evidences, and they turn away from it, it's not the eyes that are blind, ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور, but it's the hearts which become blind, right? It's the hearts that are in the chest that grow blind, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And the Prophet ﷺ used to make dua. He used to make a specific dua a lot. He used to say, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. He used to say, Oh, the one who turns the hearts, establish or make my heart firm upon your religion. Ya muqallib al-qulub wal absar, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. He used to say, Oh, the turner of hearts and the turner of sights, make my heart firm upon your religion. And Aisha, his wife, radiallahu anha, would ask him, why would you say this? Why would you say this? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded that the heart is between the two fingers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When He wants it to change, it can change, right? So why shouldn't I make this dua, right? And this is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying this, which is, what about me and you, right? It's a more emphasis for me and you, inshallah. And this is where we'll stop for today. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Does anyone have